All right, so we just saw how to complete the square in our intro video. So now we're going to apply that to an actual quadratic equation so that we can solve. So our first equation is x squared plus 14x equals 15. Now, in the last couple lessons, or we've done a lot of get everything on one side and 0 on the other side. When you complete the square, you don't have to do that. We actually like this c value to be on the other side of the equation, so we can just kind of ignore it for a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to put in a couple blank spaces. So we're going to say x squared plus 14x plus, and there's that blank space that we had when we did our intro video. And I'm going to say equals 15, and I'm going to talk about that in a second. So let's complete the square. Let's give ourselves something that's factorable. Let's create a perfect square trinomial. So we do just what we were doing before. Take your b value, divide it by 2. So 14 divided by 2 is 7. And then we're going to square it to go right there. We're going to add in a 49. Okay, well, now that we're dealing with an equation which has two sides that are equal to each other, we just added in 49. We totally threw off our entire equation by adding a 49 on the left side of our equation. So how do we balance that out? So we balance that out by saying, well, if I'm going to add a 49 on the left side of my equation, I'm going to add a 49 over on the right side as well. So what that does is that just keeps, you got this equal sign in the middle. What you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. So if I'm adding a 49 over here, I have to add a 49 over there. So that's kind of the first thing to keep in mind when you're solving an equation by completing the square. All right, well, let's keep working on this left side over here. We know that that's a perfect square trinomial, so we can go ahead and factor that. And remember, we noticed all those patterns in our intro video. We know that this is going to factor into an x plus, remember it's that b over 2, 7. If we forget that, you could say, well, what are factors of 14 that add up to a positive 7? And we would say 7. A 7 and a 7, which is why we're just going to say x plus 7 squared equals, and then 15 plus 49 gives us 64. All right, awesome. We can solve this equation. We have an x in just one spot. You don't have the x and the x squared anymore. That's why when you complete the square, you get something that you can solve without having to factor or some of the other things you're going to learn in the next lesson. So you have the x in here. It's inside the parentheses. It's locked down by that square. So the opposite of squaring we saw in our last lesson is we are going to go ahead and square root both sides. The square root cancels out the squared, leaving us with just the x plus 7. And then the square root of 64 is 8. But the one thing you want to remember is we know that when we square root both sides, you will get two answers. So it's a positive 8 and a negative 8. Now we've kind of unlocked that x value. We can keep solving for that. We are adding 7 right here, so let's go ahead and subtract 7. So x equals, I'm going to write that negative 7 first and then the plus or minus 8 after. So here's where we just want to make sure we know how to finish up our final answer. You have a negative 7, you have a positive or negative 8. These are like terms that can go together. So we are going to go ahead and do that addition and subtraction. Here's what that's going to look like. We're going to do one of them with the plus. So we're going to say negative 7 plus 8. And then we're going to find the second answer with the minus, negative 7 minus 8. So we took that plus or minus, and we just separated out the plus up here and the minus down there, and this is going to give us our two answers. Negative 7 plus 8 is a positive 1. Negative 7 minus 8 is a negative 15. So x equals 1 and negative 15. Now, if you remember, that's supposed to be a square. From our graphing, if we were to graph this equation, the parabola, if that's just where those are your x-intercepts. It would cross the x-axis at 1 and negative 15.